Going to be talking today about your team, how to get them motivated, how to get them around you. And you don't want a bunch of slacker players hanging around you, I don't think. You don't want a bunch of slacker people hanging around your church, right? You got to get some motivated people. But anyway, this is part of the Worship Leadership Foundation, so I'm going to give you guys a nice little screenshot here in a moment about what I'm doing here, and I'm going to show you guys exactly how we're just going to talk through today the different elements of a good team. And I'm going to show you this picture here on my screen in a moment. If I don't knock everything over, I'm going to show you this screen. In a moment, we're going to talk through each one of these. This is part of Worship Leadership Foundation. So if you are not enrolled in Worship Leadership Foundations, if you're just watching this on live stream or if you're just watching this on YouTube, make sure you enroll at worshiptheking.com and you can actually go there. I haven't gone there lately, but I think I can actually show you guys if you want me to show you. I'll show you how to go there. Just go to worshiptheking.com. I'll pop this over here for you. And go to worshiptheking.com. And go to Worship Leadership Foundations, and you will see a page sort of like this. It'll show you everything we're talking about. We are in the first week about vision right now, okay? First week about vision, and we're talking about this is really going to help you guys visualize your team. Here's what it's going to look like, and I'll just go ahead and pop this back up on the screen so you can see it right here, and we'll get right into it. If you have any questions, always leave them in the comments below. You can comment to me at any time. Even if this is not live, you can actually leave comments in the section of the YouTube video or the Facebook video feed, or you can just send an email to me at eric@worshiptheking.com. All right, so what about your team? We are talking about team building. Yesterday, we talked about the God-inspired circle, and later this afternoon, we're doing a Bible study on that. But today, we're going to talk about your team. I identified part of what I think a really good team should be, what it should be about, how it should be. And this is sort of what it's like. I'll close out this because you probably don't care about seeing that, do you? All right, so your team should be, your team is going to be motivated, okay? I'm just going to go around the circle, starting out with your team, motivated, worship-motivated congregation. Okay, so this doesn't necessarily, not everything on this list is necessarily about your team, okay? So it might not actually be your actual team, but like your church. So, but a worship-motivated congregation, what does that mean? And it's something that starts on the stage, starts really as a culture of your church. If your church isn't really into worship, if music is just 2 or 3 songs that they're doing, and they're not really that into it, and you get up there and you're a worship leader and you want everybody to get all excited about worship, and it just doesn't happen, it probably starts here. Being motivated, worship-motivated congregation, having people who are motivated to worship. If you ever go to a worship seminar, if you ever attend one live, then you'll notice that it's a bunch of worship leaders, basically. Worship leaders, band members, people that are excited about worship. So the worship leader comes up there, he says, let's worship, and then all of a sudden it's like everybody's like, yeah, amen. You know, everybody's just all of a sudden just worshiping and singing. And it's an emotion you don't feel like in your normal Sunday morning church. This is something that feels a lot different, okay? I think I just put this comment section. There it is. That way, in case you comment, I can see. So if you go to this worship conference, like I was at the, I think it was Worship Together last year, and I mean, it was like thousands of worship leaders singing, huge choir. I remember when I was younger, when I was going to these first worship conferences, you go from your small church that you're leading and you're up there singing into a room full of worship leaders that are all just hungry to worship and sing together, and it's a different feeling. So think about that. If you had a worship-motivated congregation, if you had a congregation that was just really intense on worshiping, if they were really singing, when you started singing, they started singing. When you started praying, they started praying. They were into it. It's gonna help this whole thing in your church feel a lot better. So we can talk more about that, and we will talk more about that as we go. How to motivate them in worship, and part of that is being a good leader. You have to take part of that on you as a worship leader to motivate them to worship, but also your pastor has to do that, and also biblically and everything you have to be all solid. So let's talk about the next one on the list, going to the right, going clockwise down to solid. So first, if you get motivated, solid song catalog. Okay, so we're going to talk about these elements are going to be talked about in in the next 9 weeks as we're going through this. So we're going to actually be picking a song catalog. I'm going to show you how I pick songs. I'm going to show you how you should pick songs. I'm not going to pick songs for you, but I'm going to show you what would it be like to have a good, solid, we're going to talk about it in the foundations, your top 50, your solid 50. If you're picking songs, these all tie together, so I'll tie this together in this. If you're picking songs all over the map, like people don't know the songs, and you're picking some weird songs, you're picking some songs that you can't sing, you're singing them too high, you're doing different things, people aren't going to be motivated to worship. They're just going to feel awkward because they can't sing your songs and they don't know your songs. So a solid song catalog will help your congregation be motivated to worship with you, okay? And picking a song catalog is important, and it's a really important element of your leadership ability. So this can be something you can do as a team as well, with your pastor, with everybody on your team. But you can't neglect this part. You can't just walk up there and start singing songs and expect everybody's motivated to just worship along with you because you're so cool, and they just all want to be there singing with you. That's not it. They have to feel motivated. Song catalog is huge, okay? Song catalog is a huge motivating point. What about a well-trained band? That's going down counterclockwise or going clockwise. It's a well-trained band. Well-trained band means you have a band that can actually lead worship. If you have a stinky dinky band, you get up there and try to lead worship, I guarantee you nobody's motivated to worship along with a stinky dinky band. So you get up there and they're just like, what is going on? You're causing all kinds of trouble, causing all kinds of problems. It's not going to be great. And then they're going to be like, I don't know. It's okay. I mean, think about everything they see on TV is so done well. And we'll talk about excellence as we go on. But training a band is your job. If you're the worship leader, you're the pastor, it is your job, absolutely your job, to implement training, to put training in place, to have people to train, pay for training, whatever you have to do. You have to be able to train these people that are in your band. If you have a well-trained band, then you will have more success than you would if you just have some, what I call it, whatever, hickey-dicky band up there just doing whatever they want to do. All right, so I'm drinking coffee and trying to get through all these points, but it seems like allergies have been really kicking. It's starting to get cool here, and my allergies are just not making me feel that great vocally. And anyway, worship band builder has plenty of band training. I mean, if you look, and I'll take a minute and look at this with you, because if you're going, well, I don't know. A lot of people that I've met in worship ministry, they'll go in and they won't really have any really idea how to play the drums. It's not like every worship leader knows how to play everything. And that's the thing. You don't really know how to play everything. So how are you supposed to train a band if you don't know how to do anything? The main point is that you're thinking about it, that you want a well-trained band and that you're willing to go out there. Like, there are more resources in the world right now, and there are more online training courses than you can count. I mean, there are tons of things. Now, this is Worship Leadership Foundations on Worship the King. So if you have an electric guitar player, if you have a piano player, if you have a guitar player, somebody who's trying to learn, if you just have a drummer that's not doing great, then you can click on Worship Band Foundations Drums and Bass. And these are foundational lessons for drummers. This will get your drummer playing to a click. It'll get your drummer playing the songs that you want, playing 4 beats, playing fills, doing the things that your drummer needs to be doing. This is what Foundations is all about. So if you're looking at this and going, oh yeah, I do need to train some people. What do I do? Just go to worshiptheking.com. Start here, Foundations bundles. And you can even do all team access. You have electric guitar, drums, bass. We train in these series. We will train all of your musicians from the modern worship band stage to actually play the songs, okay? And then, for example, you can give their songbooks here that you can go get a songbook and they can learn the song sessions right from the songbooks. The new songbook's coming out this week. It's getting ready to come out. So this songbook here, you can get them all on Amazon. I believe these are just going to take you right over to Amazon. That's going to take you over to the song charts. Okay. So anyway, you're gonna see that. So the main point here is you need a trained band. There are resources out there. There are plenty of places you can go. Even YouTube. You can just YouTube how to play to a click track or whatever, things like that. But you have to have that. And let's move on to excellence. Excellence in the thing. So there it is. Excellence in there. Guys, excellence is something I was thinking about getting into it on the trained band, but if you go to any kind of concert, any kind of, as long as it's not like a middle school band concert, if you go to like a professionally done concert or a movie or anything, you're going to hear excellent music. You're going to hear killer guitar parts. You're going to hear all this production. They spend millions of dollars. Yes, they spend millions of dollars. Or if you're at, say, a Carrie Underwood concert or a Chris Tomlin concert, you're going to hear the best musicians in the world. But that doesn't mean that at church, people are like, well, this is just church. It doesn't have to be good. I'm okay with just stinky-dinky worship. I'm okay with the worship guys not even tuning their instruments. Nobody thinks that. They're coming to church, and you're getting up on stage, and you got a band there, and you're like, we're going to be the band, guys. We're going to play the songs. And you start playing, and it sounds like a train wreck. People will notice. Now, there are varying degrees of noticing. Some people will be like, oh, it sounded great. Some people are going to come up to you and say, I'm tone deaf, but I think it sounded great. You know, but I'm talking about people, the majority of people that kind of are going to create an opinion on you, and at your church, at your worship, they're going to create an opinion about how stinky you are if you come up there doing this kind of willy-nilly and not really training and not doing excellence. I think excellence is important. I think it's very important. And some people would say that I think it's too important. But I don't think that we can be too excellent. I don't think we can strive for too much excellence. I don't think that's a flaw. I think some people say that, oh, you're just putting too much emphasis on excellence because, you know, you're just a college trained musician. This is church. We're not trying to be, you know, this. We're not trying to be a concert. Well, but you are putting musicians on a stage in 2020 or 2021 or 2022 or whenever you're watching. You're putting musicians on a stage in front of people with modern instruments and amplification. You're acting like you're going to have a music experience. And then you're like, well, but we're not really trying to be anything like that. So be careful not to poo-poo excellence because you don't want to reach for it because it's too much work, or you think you can't afford it, or you think that it can't be done. You can get excellent trained musicians with a solid catalog and motivate your congregation to worship. You can do that. And I challenge you to do it. Do not fall into that trap that you think, well, this is just church. You know, it's just church. So, you know, we're just going to do it and it's be fine. At the end of the day, you're right. It's church and it will be fine. Nothing's going to happen. But if you are a worship leader, if you're watching this video, if you're a pastor, if you are trying to do something, what is the point of doing it, being a part of it, if it's not excellent, if you're not striving for your most excellent work? That is what God wants us to do. Give your best to God. I mean, it says everything you do, do it as unto the Lord. So if you want to do stinky worship unto the Lord, just, you know, don't tune half the instruments and don't practice and show up and just kind of phlegm through some songs if that's your best that you are doing unto the Lord. But I know it's not. But be careful not to fall into the trap of that sort of over-spiritualized, it's not a big deal because it's church and we're just doing this for worship. I had a group of musicians that I was working with once, and they like to jam. They only really wanted to jam. When I came in and said, we're going to start doing song orders, we're going to start rehearsing, they were really upset about it because they were saying that this wasn't worshipful anymore. It wasn't worshipful. But I had been hired to come into the church to make the band better because the pastor was saying, this just sounds like a noisy mess on the stage. But they were like, this is not right because we just want to jam. We want to worship. But you're a worship leader. So those moments on stage, a lot of times that is your duty to be good, to play the right parts. If you just get up, if you just want to worship and sing and just playing whatever, do that in your bedroom, do that in your office, do that at your house, do that with your family. When you take on a role as a worship leader, you go up to the church, you're there to perform excellence as a musician and to perform worship to God. But in the end, you're there as a musician, a highly trained musician. Okay? They were not super happy with me because I was very excited about creating structure and order and rehearsal for the team. And the team grew and became very good. We even recorded some of our stuff. Some of it's on YouTube. But before that, it was just a noisy mess. They were just making stuff up on the fly every Sunday. Not good. Let's go around the circle to the inspired section. An all for one, and I don't know why I put a 4 and then a 1, but that's still all for one, biblical-based team. Okay, so this is important because it's all people on your team for one purpose. Now, you're the leader, so you're going to have to lay this out to them and let them know this is what we're doing. This is our all for one, biblically based team. All for one. For Christ, for worship, for the church. When you go into the church as the worship leader and you get a drummer and a bass player and you get all these people, now you have 10 people. Now you have 15 people. Maybe you have 20 people. Maybe you only have 5, but any more than one person, there can become a problem with unity if they're not all going on the same thing. So you got one guy, he thinks he's going to be a country star. You got one guy, he thinks he's just trying to prove it to himself that he can be a rock and roll drummer, so he uses the church. I'm going to play drums. All these people, for all these other reasons, getting on your worship team. And this is how it's not going to work. They have to be inspired to be for one. So if you say, hey, I need you to play, for example, Bob the drummer, I need you to just play once a month because we're just rotating and and I need you to train 2 other drummers along the way. Now, if Bob is thinking he's the man, he's going to be a rock and roll drummer, and his whole thing about being on the worship team is just to boost his own ego, he is not going to go well with that. But if Bob is inspired for one purpose, a biblically based team inspired to worship God, he'll say, you know what, that's right. I want to train some people underneath me. I don't mind playing once a month and giving a younger drummer a chance. Or I don't mind playing once a month, giving an older guy a chance. I don't mind being that because I'm for the church. I'm for the worship ministry. I'm for the point is I'm for the unified team. So if you see this, it says inspired and all for one biblically based team. They're based on scripture that we're there to serve God, to serve one another. We're not there for selfish, stupid reasons. We're not there for just to do whatever we want to do because we want to do it. We are there to together make the bigger picture, make a bigger thing happen, make a bigger, it's for the bigger picture and it's for the team unity. If you can get people on your team like that, then a lot of the personalities will melt away, and we will learn how to serve each other, serve God together, and we'll be inspired because we're doing this for biblical reasons, not for selfish personal gain. If you get a bunch of musicians together, which most of musicians are egotistical, I can say whatever I want to about musicians because I am one. Musicians are very egotistical. They're also very creepy and weird, like creatively creepy. I mean, they just seem kind of... Normal people might look at musicians and think they're creepy and weird and eccentric, and you can say whatever you want to about musicians, and I can because I am one. And because musicians are creative, they're built differently. Our minds work differently. Our emotions work differently. We express ourselves differently than a non-musician. We have tapped into a creative, maybe eccentric sort of part of our mind, and it's a different part of the brain. Now, when you're around a lot of people like that, if they're not all together biblically based, focused on one unifying thing, you're going to get plenty of people to think they're the stuff. They've created this artistic thing in their mind. They're just going to be the lead singer and they're just going to do their thing. And all these people are going to start creating these things because musicians are kind of weird and they're kind of hard to deal with. Now, because I've been so weird and been a musician my whole life, I understand them. So get that understanding. If you're a musician, it's better because you can understand them. Sometimes people will say to me, that guy's weird. He's really weird. And I'm like, yeah, he's cool. I like him. Almost the weirder the better. Sometimes they can, my musician friends are weird. I'm sorry, guys. You're weirdos, okay? It's just a weird. I got some of my musician friends saying some weird stuff to me. I'm like, okay, I get it. And but I say normal people that aren't musicians might be like, man, that guy's a weirdo. And that's okay. Be weird and be inspired to be on one team. My point of saying all that weird stuff about you guys is that if we're not all inspired, biblically based to one goal, you're going to have a lot of silly stuff happening. And pastors who are not musicians have a really hard time dealing with musicians because they just don't understand even how they're even thinking. So a lot of times in my role on the pastoral staff has been just to let the pastor know, like, well, I understand, Joe, he's just, that's the way he is because of this way. Oh, okay. He doesn't understand Joe because Joe's the drummer and Joe's kind of weird. Joe says weird stuff. Joe does weird stuff. Joe has different motivations. He's too creative, whatever. Pastors think a different way than that, maybe. I'm not saying pastors aren't weird. They are sort of weird too. All right, let's go on before I call everybody weird in my seminar, webinar, whatever you want to call this. The final one, blended vocalist. Okay, so I just put this together. Blended vocalist. All right, guys. Not every vocalist knows how to blend. Not every vocalist even knows how to sing. Think about that. Have you ever heard a singer at church? You thought that person can't sing? Well, that's my point. Some people go up there to sing at church because they want to sing, not because they can sing. Somebody might have told them they can sing, but they can't sing. So there you have worship leadership foundations for vocals for training. So you can train people, but you want blended. My son is going crazy in there. I don't know why he's yelling, but he's just yelling about something. Probably yelling about his Xbox. Blended vocalist. Maybe I should tell them to be quiet. Yeah. Maybe they don't know I'm on a live video. There, I'll tell them to be quiet. So the last point I'm making here is blended vocalist. Yeah. Blended vocalist. They're making all kinds of noise. Hopefully they've quieted down. Some people can't sing. Some people don't know how to sing. They think they can sing. They get up there to sing, and it's like not good. As a leader, as you're building your team, you're going to want to be finding people that can sing and getting them to blend. Whatever you have to do. This can be a huge distraction point. It can be a fact of audio mixing. Like, for example, when I'm mixing, if I've got a vocalist on stage that is singing a weird harmony, yeah, it's blended noise. That's what it is. I'm looking at the comments now. Blended noise. If I'm listening to a vocalist that can't harmonize and they're doing something weird, as the audio production, I am actually turning them down. I'm blending them in. So this is not just your vocalist issue. If you've got a sound guy who's not mixing the vocals right, so sometimes you have, in our church, we have the lead singers will change song to song. And a lot of churches are doing that now. So you got a lead singer changing from song to song. And if the sound guy's not into that, he can't hear that, or if he's not trained well, now he's putting the harmony guy above the melody girl, or vice versa. So you've got the girl that sings harmony on the first song, she's singing lead now, and instead her lead is buried and the harmony is coming out. So this is an issue. Blending vocalists, and this is just some of the key elements that I put down on this paper as I was looking at overall worship ministry, growing your ministry, motivated congregation, a solid song catalog, a trained band, an excellent sound team. Oh, I was excellent, an excellent sound team. I kind of skipped that right over. Excellent. That wasn't just excellence, it was excellent sound team, which is super important. Inspired, all for one, biblically based team, and blended vocalist. And let me go down there. I'll end on that bottom one because I skipped in my brain that says excellent sound team. But that is a very large key. If you get your whole worship team on stage and you're practicing for 4 hours and you get up there Sunday morning and everything's good and your sound guy just doesn't turn on the electric guitar parts, which happens more than you think, then your electric guitar player is not heard. The parts are not heard, is not there. If your sound guy cannot do it, see, that's why I said in one of my seminars this week, I said that I would trade my guitar player, my best guitar player from stage, to the sound booth. I would say, hey, dude, you've got to go to the sound booth. I know you're playing, but you can't hear you. If you got a bad sound guy, you won't hear him anyway. My point was, take your best sound guy and put him in the booth. It doesn't matter if he was your drummer, if he was your, thank you, Justina. Is that how you say your name? I'll just say it. Yeah, Justina. Thank you. If you take your electric guitar player off stage because he's a professional sound guy, and you stick him behind the sound booth, your whole band's going to get better. If you've got basically an untrained sound guy in your sound booth, no matter what you do on stage is not going to matter. That's one of my biggest frustrations. I've always been a sound guy. In fact, right now at this current time, I'm in the media role at my church, so I'm building media teams and doing things like that. So I've been in the sound booth since COVID hit. I haven't got to play much. I haven't got to lead worship much. I haven't got to be in the band. I played drums a month ago. It was fun. But I know that our team overall needs really good sound guys. And that's one of my fortes is mixing and sound. So when we started doing our live feed, they're like, dude, we need you on the live feed. I was like, yeah, I know. We got to get this done. So I have not been able to play much. And that's a little sacrifice. But also I knew, here's the key. For those of you who are honing in on this, I knew if I'm playing up there anyway and we don't have a good live stream mix, it won't matter what I play. I can play all kinds of stuff up there if it's not being heard or if it's not coming across right. So the mix, the production mix, the front of house mix is super important. It has to be excellent. And I think a lot of people, this has been my biggest frustration in ministry almost to this date is sound guys that won't mix right or just the whole sound system. So also as a leader at my church and as we go to our church and we love our church, we've just thought, this is really where we see a need and this is really where we feel at this time that we can really help. So we're able to support the worship leaders. We're able to support the worship team, the whole ministry by doing that part of the tech and then training up more people. So if you got a drummer or a guitar player who used to run house sound or is good, has a good ear, always talks about sound to you, maybe you need to talk to him about running sound for 6 months and training some people. Also, with that, you can also do at Worship Leadership Foundations, if you're in my Worship Leadership program now, that's different than where we have Foundations bundle we actually have, I'm going to pull it up here before I go off here. We actually have this Foundations bundle for sound. So it's one of my exciting ones, audio and live stream. So we really added live streams to this, but this is all the stuff about EQ, compression, running house mix, using an X32 digital console, all the things that your sound guys are going to need. And this is getting really deep because now that I'm working with my media team at our church, I'm doing even more videos each week in this Foundations. This is the Foundations module that sort of is growing all the time. It's not static, in other words. It's not just 8 videos and over. This is, I think there's already over 30 lessons, and we're just continuing to grow. So if you were to buy this Foundations bundle, you would just continue to have the updated lessons, and you can ask questions too, and I'll make that stuff for you happen. So, yeah, as a worship leader, I started as a sound guy. I started recording on a 4-track when I was 14 years old. When I was 15 years old, I was taking apart the telephone and hooking wires into it and trying to record through a cassette player. They had those cassettes. I was doing some weird stuff. And so I've always been fascinated with the electronics, with the media, and watching it go. And I was always recording when I was younger. My first album I recorded with my friend in 10th grade. So we went to a real studio, and we've been fascinated with the industry and watched the industry go from the digital tapes, even the analog tapes, to now all of this digital equipment. So it is cool to be able to do that and help that. And if you're a worship leader, I know you're struggling with this. I know this is probably one of the hardest parts. And if it isn't, it's because you found somebody who has a real brain for it, who can really sit behind the soundboard and really do it. And you found somebody. You actually found somebody already. So thank God for that. If you haven't found somebody, no problem, because training and getting to know that stuff helps. One time I was at a church working with a guy, and I said, he was the worship leader, and I just said, hey, can we get do you have compression settings on the vocal mics? Because they sounded like all distorted a little bit. And he said, I don't really know. And there was no sound guy there. They were just kind of running the sound. So he's like, I don't really know how to use it. And I think that's probably part of the problem as a leader, not understanding every aspect. Some leaders will just show up, they'll put their guitar on, they'll just be like, all right, I'm ready. I'm going to lead worship. Let's make this happen, people. Let's make it happen. And they're just looking around like, it's not going to happen like that unless you're surrounded by a ton of high-level people. So what you're going to have to do is dig in, start visioning, and in the Worship Leadership's Foundations, we talked this week about the God and Vision Circle. So make sure you go back, listen to that one. If you're not enrolled in this, enroll in it during the beta savings. You can download all the charts. The God and Vision Circle will get you back to where do I need to be? Where do I want to be? Where am I at? I'm growing and I'm measuring and all that. So check that out, because everything I'm saying here is a big picture. But I know each one of you has a smaller picture in your mind and in your hands right now. This is what you have. You have a few people, and you have like half of a drum set, or you have like only 2 bass players and 1 cajon player, and you're thinking, how do I get to the next level? This is a big picture of some of the most important elements that I really felt like were part of my success building worship bands. Hopefully this has helped you, and if you have any questions, for sure, send them to eric@worshiptheking.com and continue going through this week. We have a Bible study live coming up today, and then it'll also be in the Foundations thing. So how the modules work, we're doing this every day, and then we're putting it into the Foundations module. So it'll all be in there, so you can access it lifetime, share it with your group. You can get that at worshiptheking.com, and it's Worship Leadership Foundations. I'll pray over you because I believe that's important. God, I pray for each person watching today, each worship leader, each pastor, each even volunteer, that you would give them a great vision, that they would see this chart, God, and they would really begin to think in their minds what part is missing and how they can just make one of these parts better this quarter, this month, moving forward to bringing you glory, God, to making your ministry and the ministry of worship in their local church, Lord, which is so powerful when it's done well, when we're together, when we're unified. People will see and hear worship, and their lives will be changed. I pray that over these leaders, and I pray it in Jesus' name. Amen. See you on the next one.